Hello, I am Beth Miller. I am the marriage coach here at Solify. I'm the founder of the Marriage Saver program and I'm a consulting hypnotist. And here we go. We got a great topic today. Recently, I posted in our Facebook group, I said, if there's something you could learn in the next 30 days, what would it be? Drum roll, please. Multiple people said, multiple wives said, I would like to learn how to end those intrusive thoughts. And I'm going to look down quite often at my notes because I've written down about 9 different steps in how we're going to do this. So multiple people said different versions of, I want to learn how to end these intrusive thoughts. And so I've broken it down into a few different categories. First one, there's the intrusive thoughts. Like, why did he do this? Is it still happening? Where did it happen? When did it happen? Like, how is it even happening? What did they say? What did they do? So these types of like thoughts that are just coming through. And then there's also the images, the flashes. And the flashes of the IP, the affair partner, could be flashes of them together. And what's interesting about this too, those images, sometimes they're not real. Like, our brain has an incredible way of putting imagery to different thoughts. So it's not like we saw them together, but you may know a little bit of detail, like they went to a restaurant. And so now you have this imagery, you know what he looks like, you know what she looks like, and you know what the restaurant looks like, and you kind of put it together. You know what his characteristics are like, how he interacts. So then you can kind of piece together what he would have been like at that restaurant. All right, so let's see here. What I need you to do by the end of this is I want you to feel like you have a concrete strategy in how to deal with these thoughts, because they're derailing. When you have these intrusive thoughts, it's exhausting. You can't focus on work. If you're a mom, busy mom, you can't focus. You're distracted. Plus, you're exhausted. Like, you have a million other things to do in a day. This is not something you need to be thinking about. Your brain has other things it needs to do. So let's figure out how to get rid of these intrusive thoughts. If you at all feel called throughout this live, or after you've watched the live, to take this deeper, I want you to DM me. There's a link below on how to DM me. Just click the link and send me a message that says deeper, or in the comments put the word deeper. And what I'll do is I'll respond back with your exact next steps on how to really take this work deeper so that you can end those intrusive thoughts. All right, let's get to it. I have about 9 steps here. The first one really starts with awareness, which all of you have. If you're having intrusive thoughts, like, you're aware that they're there. So we just want to really get clear on exactly what they are. Like, start to track, like, is there one in particular that keeps rotating, keeps coming up every single day, multiple times a day? So what are the thoughts that are coming on? Even if you could journal them out, like the main top 3, top 5, top 10 that I keep having is, hello everyone, the main one that keeps coming up, we need to deal with. Subconsciously, your mind's like, nope, I'm not good with this. And it could be for multiple reasons, and we can get into the reasons why it keeps coming up. But is it a thought, particular thought, or thoughts that are coming up? Is it particular images? And the images are so difficult and can be really raw to talk about, but I think it's really important to write out some of the imagery that you're seeing as well, because those are unresolved beliefs, we can say, or unresolved issues in your head that your mind has associated beliefs. And we'll get into that, why they're sticking. So the next thing what we need to do is figure out, like, okay, why are these repetitive, constant thoughts coming? And what is the emotion associated with them? And that's really powerful too. Because if you're like thinking of things like, I don't know, you think about a birthday party, or you think about your kids and some like fun activities that they're doing, sports, and that activates an emotion of happiness, content, joy, excitement. And so that thought is being triggered by the anticipation, the thought of, okay, maybe they'll make it to a state championship, something like that. And that comes with the emotion of excitement. So when it comes to the affair, you have these thoughts of, is it going to happen again? Which then activates the emotion of complete fear. So we can be triggered in happy ways, exciting ways. Those ones are ones we want to keep. It's when we're triggered with what I call an undesirable emotion, when we have an undesirable emotion activated in us. So what are these emotions? Is it particularly fear? Is it anger? Is it sadness? Often anger is like a catch-all. It's like this like umbrella for a ton of things underneath. The thing with anger is it really has a tendency to close our heart. It protects our heart. It's like, if this is your heart, it puts this like case around it that keeps it hard. Because that anger keeps us in power. When we're angry, it keeps us in control. Because if your partner knows that you're angry, like, that's like a wall. You're like, I am still in control, versus sad, which is often perceived as weakness. If you're sad and crying, it's like you're vulnerable, you're open, you're porous. So we got to check in to see what emotion is attached to these thoughts. Okay, step 1, awareness. Is it thoughts, images, kind of top 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 that are coming up? What is the emotion that is associated with each? And then what we can do from here is really backtrack it if you can. This is really interesting. We're going to backtrack the trigger. And so if you can see here, we're kind of creating a picture. It's not just I have this thought, I want it to end. We got to like kind of do some investigation work here. So we have to then backtrack the trigger. And what's fascinating about this is they come out of nowhere, but they don't actually come out of nowhere. So I can call it like a trigger train. Imagine this. So I have this example of, just say you ran out of milk, so you're going to a grocery store, Wegmans. I'm Canadian, we don't have a Wegmans, but I know that's one in the US, and most of you in this group are American. So just say you need to get milk from Wegmans. You're then driving there, and as you're driving there, you know her house is nearby, or you pass a restaurant that they used to go to, or a parking lot that they used to park in. And so all of a sudden, you just need to get milk, and then go into Wegmans, and then that triggers where does she live, or what did they do and hang out. So it's fascinating when we start to figure out the train and what created it, what made it happen. So of course, if you have any questions for those that are watching, feel free to pop them in the chat here and I'll answer them as we go. So we got to backtrack the trigger, see if you can figure out the trigger chain, because that also gives us clues on how we can stop it. Because if it's the grocery store, the idea of getting groceries, we then have an idea is, okay, what is the belief around driving past her house? What is the emotion about driving past her house? Okay, can you avoid being triggered? So with that said, we know that in that example is, like if we're going to get groceries driving past our house, can we just avoid that trigger, maybe take a different way to go to Wegmans? Is that something you can do? And the idea is no. Ideally, we want to be able to expose you to things that have triggered you in the past. And if that's her house, your mind is not settled. It's quite upset about driving past her house because that makes you think of her. And we're giving her too much control, because it's not like she owns the neighborhood. It's not like she owns the way, the path to Wegmans. We got to make sure we can compartmentalize it. I mean, like, she's this versus the whole drive there, the city, everything that you're passing is much bigger, but somehow she overtakes that whole drive. And so we need to almost like make her smaller, so then the thoughts are smaller. But we'll get to that in a little bit. Okay, so we can't really avoid being triggered. You can't just like do something else as an avoidance strategy. All right, the next thing we want to dig into, if you're following me here, we have the awareness. What is it that you're actually thinking? The emotion that's activated, anger, sadness. From then, we really want to backtrack the trigger, figure out what the source is of it. And then what we want to do is get into the belief. What is like unsettled in your mind? So how this works, and I've told you about this before in other lives, we have memories. So that's the affair, maybe things they did together, time spent together. And then, so that memory creates these beliefs. The beliefs of, I can't trust him. Beliefs of, I'm not safe to express my emotions, it's going to happen again, like all these different beliefs. And then from these beliefs, what happens is then we have an emotion, sadness, anger, embarrassment, jealousy. And from that emotion, what then happens is these thoughts, the thoughts that are so consuming. So that's why we have to figure out what the belief is, so then we can figure out what the thoughts and the emotions are. So if we get to the belief and we can change the belief, like if the belief is I can't trust him, you won't have those same thoughts of where, when is it going to happen again. So that's why it's so important to get to these beliefs. And if, again, back to that Wegmans example, the belief might be it's going to happen again, or he loves her more than me. So maybe the belief is he doesn't love me. I'm not safe to talk to him about this issue because he shuts right down. I can't trust him. Then maybe that spirals into like back to that trigger train, spirals into what's going to happen to my family. So we need to know that belief, because if we change the belief to I can trust him, he does love me, I choose to believe today, small, that's not going to happen today, my family will be okay, I will be okay. If we can change those 4 beliefs from he doesn't love me, I'm not safe to express my feelings, I can't trust, what's going to happen to my family too, I can trust, I'm going to say it again, I can trust, I am safe, my family will be okay, he does love me. When we can shift that, it creates totally different thoughts. But now into this, like, how do I just change that belief? You can't willpower yourself. It's not like, you could, I guess you could. You could put stickies on your mirrors and say, he loves me, he loves me, he loves me. And you could, like, through repetition, try to program yourself to believe it to be true. But the fastest way is really just to get to that memory. We can just go to the memory that's driving that belief. And we can't change our memories. Our memories are legitimate. And I think there's some misconception. I saw someone in the Facebook group post, like, someone's therapist said you should go to get hypnotherapy done so that you can forget about a memory. That is not what I do in my practice at all. I don't even know if it's possible to do that based on anything that I've learned, because you can't change a memory. In fact, you have to like process it. You can't just be like, I teach you, how would it be? Like, I don't even know how a hypnotherapy would do it. Like, you no longer will remember this memory. I don't even think that's something that's possible. Instead, what we want to do is go to the memory, and what we want to do is face it. And when we face it, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit here. When you face a memory, so the memory is maybe like the day you found out about it. Like you're there, you see the messages or the email, or someone calls you to tell you what's happening. You go back to that memory, but we take it really slow. So the memory's here, you see yourself like, sorry, the memory, you see the memory, and what we want to do is kind of witness. And sometimes you can even imagine it's on a TV screen, and it's on this TV screen, and what happens is you see it, but it's very slow. Sometimes we even like freeze the frame, like when I do my therapy sessions. Freeze the frame, you stare at it, you're like, what emotion is activated? All of a sudden it's like deep sadness. And then from there, what we often do is we bring in kind of like your higher self. That's like the version of you that's empowered, in control, at ease, calm, the version of you that's like a little older than you. Sometimes it's even like a parent or a grandparent that comes in, someone that's like your ally, someone that truly believes in you. And she will often walk in and say, you're going to be okay. You got this. I believe in you. And just having her right there, it's amazing how we can then start to shift the emotion. And what we do is we look at that past event as, you know what, this is horrible. It's not right. It's not okay. And sometimes what we even do, it depends. I have so many tools, but we can even like talk to him in that moment as if you're not, it's not like it actually happened, but you talk to him and be like, you hurt me so deeply. It's like, they call it talking to the herd is the strategy that we use. And you talk to him and you can yell at him, you can do what you need to in that moment to get that emotion out. And it's really powerful how we revisit that memory, kind of stare at it as if it's like a picture or a still frame. And that totally can neutralize it because you like have processed it, you've gone back. We actually feel some of those emotions release from your body. So that's one strategy that we use. And I know I've got off topic here, but oh yeah, because someone was saying that you could forget memories through hypnosis, and you can't. That's not something that happens. We actually need to face it and neutralize it, and probably do a live more on the strategy and actually the tools we use. But that was just a quick example. Okay, back to those that are just joining now. We have about 9 steps in terms of getting rid of those intrusive thoughts. If you have any questions, just put them in the comments here. First one, everyone has this because you know you're having intrusive thoughts. It's the awareness of those thoughts. Is it actual thoughts? Is it images that you keep seeing? From there, we want to know what emotion is activated: anger, sadness, fear, jealousy. From there, we want to do some backtracking of the triggers. If you haven't, you're just jumping in, make sure you go back. I call it the trigger train. Figure out what the sequence of events was that got you to that trigger. From then, what we want to do is figure out the belief associated with the actual trigger and the memory. And from then, we really want to figure out the block. What is the block? Like, why can't I just get rid of this belief that he doesn't love me, or I'm not safe, or I can't trust him? So we really want to figure out what the block is, because this is how you're feeling. He doesn't love me. That's the thought that keeps coming up. This is the thought, he does love me. We just got to figure out what is the mess that's in the middle. And often it's a bunch of different things. It's different events that have happened. It's him shutting you down when you're trying to bring this up. It's the fact that he's being sneaky and still on his phone. We just got to figure out what's in the middle. And some of it is just boundaries, for sure, like boundaries that need to be set and respected. But other stuff is those memories that we need to go back and we really need to neutralize. From there, what we really need to do is process facts versus not facts. And so when we have all these thoughts, I told you at the very beginning, write down some of those thoughts. I wanted to go through them as well, not just to say what emotion is associated with them, what belief is associated with them, but also what is real, what's not real. And this is fascinating. Sometimes our minds will make up stuff. It tries to fill in the gaps, and rightfully so. There's a lot of information that you probably don't know. So I think figuring out what is real, what is not real. And then from there, we got to figure out, you know what, do I want to let this go? And this is so fascinating. I'll work with clients and they're like, I want to stop being angry with him. I want to stop that feeling. I'm like, do you want to let it go? And sometimes they're like, no, I don't. I want to be angry. He deserves, if I stop being angry, he's going to think everything's okay, that what he did isn't wrong. So I need to keep reminding him that I'm angry and I'm not over this. And so that's really hard to let go of, because you actually don't want to. You don't want to feel angry anymore, but you don't actually want to let it go. So that's some soul searching we need to do as well. All right, next step. I think I'm on about 8. Step 8 here out of 9 is we now have done all this data collection, right? We now know what the triggers are, the emotions associated with them, the beliefs associated with those. From there, we now know what the actual blocks are between getting to where you want to go, where I can trust him, to what are the facts, what are not the facts, to do you actually want to change it? We have all this data. Now we got to get to work. And what I kind of mentioned, I alluded to a little bit earlier, is we have to get to a place where you can just face it. We want to get to that place where we can see that memory and start to neutralize it. So a couple things here. If it's really, really traumatic, like traumas, you don't want to do this one on your own. I would get a professional, whether it's someone that's like, I know I get a lot of questions about EMDR versus hypnosis. And again, I can do another session on that one. But hypnosis is like, my sessions are quite long. They're like 90 minutes to 2 hours long. And I will not end a session until a memory is neutralized. EMDR, what happens is you usually have just an hour with your therapist. If you're not fully reprogrammed with that actual memory, often they'll instruct you to, let's take that memory, let's put it in a capsule or put it in some sort of box, and we'll revisit it later. And sessions are about an hour. You're not deeply relaxed with hypnosis. We actually like listen to the sound of my voice. I'm going to count from 10 to 1. We're just going to calm your nervous system. You're just very inward. You're fully aware of everything else around you, but we're just going to breathe and just get very still on the inside. So you're just deeply relaxed, and I'll say, bring forth a time where you couldn't trust him. Bring forth a time where you didn't feel loved. Bring forth the time when you were driving past her house. Like, we just prompt you with these thoughts that are coming through, and those thoughts, all of a sudden you start to see the imagery. And then what happens is we start to face it, kind of like I was telling you a little bit earlier, and I have tons of strategy for how we neutralize it. So you can do it with a professional. Like, I've worked with clients that have been sexually assaulted. And so that, of course, you'd want to do with a professional. Depending on what the actual thought is, sometimes you can do some of the work on yourself. And the core of it really is you got to get to a place where you can fully accept the memory that's attached to the thought. And so often is, I can't trust him. I can't trust him. Like, I can't trust him. So what we need to do is, in some of those situations, is you have to see, you know what, I can't trust him. That version of my husband, I cannot trust. That version of him was sneaky, mean, horrible. Like, he's this person that almost looks like dark. I don't even recognize him. And so it's like we have to separate. It's like, you know what, that is the old him versus the new him. I am choosing to trust the new him, which is talking to me more, which is maybe going to therapy, which is opening up a tiny bit, who seems different. And so we have to change the belief to, yeah, I can't, like, that's part of the neutralization. Like, I can't trust that person. We kind of like seal that up. And then I choose to trust today's version. And so it's very much like letting the past stay in the past so we can stay in the present. And a lot of the work I do is like, you know what, you have to trust now, today, right now. It doesn't mean you have to trust in a week or a month. That's probably too much for your subconscious. No. Your subconscious will be like, nope, I can't trust him in a month. That's too far away. So we really want to get to a place where we can accept that's who he was, or that's what happened in the past. And when we can accept, we can then let go of the emotion associated. We can let go of the belief that I can't trust him, which then lets go of a totally different thought. So it's so powerful when we can go back and kind of separate from the past from today. One easy strategy, like something you could try when a thought comes up, after you've done all these steps and kind of had that awareness, like something that you could just try and experiment with is you sense the thought come in, he's coming home late. And so you're like, he's probably hanging out with her, or he's stopping by her house on the way home, or he's going to talk to her on the phone for a little bit and then come home. So you take that thought, you're like, stop, with conviction, stop. You see the thought, you try turning it to black and white. So stop. See if you can turn it to black and white, like your eyes closed. And a couple of things you can do is you can then imagine it just getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, just drifting off. As you're breathing, I let this thought go. I had a client last week, what she did was she'd yell, stop, and she'd imagine the thought in her hand and she would flick it away. So that's not one I've tried or practiced, but that works really powerful for her. So those are a couple of things that you can try. I have a ton of other tools in a toolbox. So like I said earlier, if you want to take this deeper, feel free to comment deeper in the comments below, like type deeper. What's even better though, if you can click the link to DM me, that would be even better, and we can kind of carry on the conversation there. I'll give you the exact next steps on what you need to do. All right, I hope you found this helpful. That's about 9 different steps that you can use to conquer these intrusive thoughts. You know what? I know it can feel so overwhelming and it feels so messy, but we really can just make it so simple. It really can. It's the thoughts, there's so much they're bombarding, it's confusing, but we can really distill it down, calm those thoughts, get you to a place that you're like, okay, I'm good. I can let this go. I accept it happened. I'm in a good place. I know I'll be okay. I have more clarity, because when those thoughts are gone, those emotions are out of the way, the clarity comes exactly what you need to do. So anyway, guys, I really appreciate taking the time to watch this. Again, reach out to me, send me deeper or whatever it is you need. I'm always here for you. All right. Bye, everyone.